Chapter 9. Dispossession. And it came to pass after these things that Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard which was in Jezreel, hard by the palace of Ahab king of Samaria. And Ahab spake unto Naboth, saying, Give me thy vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near unto my house, and I will give thee for it a better vineyard than it, or, if it seems good to thee, I will give thee the worth of it in money. And Naboth said to Ahab, The Lord forbid it, that I should give the inheritance of my fathers unto thee. And Ahab came into his house heavy and displeased because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him. For he had said, I will not give thee the inheritance of my fathers. And he laid him down upon his bed, and turned away his face, and would eat no bread. But Jezebel his wife came to him, and said unto him, Why is thy spirit so sad, that thou eatest no bread? And he said unto her, Because I spake unto Naboth the Jezreelite, and said unto him, Give me thy vineyard for money, or else, if it please thee, I will give thee another vineyard for it. And he answered, I will not give thee my vineyard. And Jezebel his wife said unto him, Dost thou now govern the kingdom of Israel? Arise and eat bread, and let thine heart be merry. I will give thee the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name, and sealed them with his seal, and sent the letters unto the elders and to the nobles that were in his city, dwelling with Naboth. And she wrote in the letters, saying, Proclaim a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people, and set 2 men, sons of Belial, before him, to bear witness against him, saying, Thou didst blaspheme God and the king, and then carry him out and stone him, that he may die. And the men of his city, even the elders and the nobles who were the inhabitants in his city, did as Jezebel had said unto them, and as it was written in the letters which she had sent unto them. They proclaimed a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people. And there came in 2 men, children of Belial, and sat before him. And the men of Belial witnessed against him, even against Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth did blaspheme God and the king. Then they carried him forth out of the city, and stoned him with stones, that he died. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth is stoned and is dead. And it came to pass, when Jezebel heard that Naboth was stoned and was dead, that Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give thee for money, for Naboth is not alive, but dead. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, that Ahab rose up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, to take possession of it. 1 Kings 21, 1-16. The presupposition of this entire chapter is biblical law and its binding nature. The sale of farmland in God's throne land was not permitted. Leviticus 25, 23-28, Numbers 36, 1-13. Not even a prince could dispossess a man. Ezekiel 46, 18. Land was not privately owned, but family owned. Naboth's farm belonged not to him, but to the family, past, present, and future. This aspect of property is still God's law. Property is not the possession of a private individual or the state, but of a family, and it is a godly inheritance and a stewardship to be treated always as a trust from the past to the future. The trial of Naboth was in terms of the law of blasphemy, Leviticus 24, 14-16, Deuteronomy 13, 6-11, 17, 2-5, etc., and in terms of the required 2 witnesses, Deuteronomy 17:16, 19:15. The fast for a national calamity was a common practice, Judges 20:26, 1 Samuel 7:6, 1 Samuel 31:13, 2 Chronicles 20:2-4, Joel 1:14, 2:12. Naboth, an innocent man, was executed, as were his sons with him, 2 Kings 9:26, for refusing to sell his land to King Ahab. The recorded instances of a sale of land in the Old Testament are by Canaanites, 2 Samuel 24:24. Ahab, like many a tyrant, avoided the direct involvement with murder. He wanted Naboth killed, but without his personal knowledge and immediate participation. He therefore sulked, knowing he would gain, and working to gain, Jezebel's concern and involvement. It was beneath his dignity to plan the murder. Jezebel was Ahab's ready tool in his strategy. The villagers and town elders were also willing and sanctimonious tools in Naboth's murder. Their part was clearly as evil as was Jezebel's and Ahab's, but perhaps the greatest sin was Ahab's. Responsibility cannot be delegated away where sin is concerned. None of the parties involved had any valid excuse. The villagers might also have shared Naboth's fate had they resisted, but they faced instead a greater judgment from the Lord. Ahab had his judgment spelled out first of all, and by Elijah. Jezebel knew Israel. She could never have put her planned murder into effect if the people had been godly and had resisted. Rather, the scandal of exposure would have shaken the throne. Jezebel believed the people would do anything if bidden. They might have a form of godliness, but none of the power thereof. 2 Timothy 3:5. Jezebel thus respected the form. The entire proceedings used the facade of God's law in order to commit murder. The modern church will also use the facade of God's law to disobey God and to defame his servants. The civil courts continue to invoke God's name and declare justice to be their goal, even as they dispense humanism and injustice. The criminal, the prostitute, and the hoodlum are evil enough, but it is the sanctimonious sinners who are the greatest evil. It is Pharisaism which our Lord most strongly condemns. God exacts vengeance for every violation of his law. He declares his judgment on Ahab's house and brings it to pass. 2 Kings 9:26. But what happens when it is the Lord who brings justice to pass rather than men, judges, pastors, and rulers? The Lord is emphatic that, beyond a certain point, he will not hear men's prayers. And ye shall cry out in that day because of your king which ye shall have chosen you, and the Lord will not hear you in that day. 1 Samuel 8:18. Indeed, in certain cases, prayer is forbidden to us. Jeremiah 7:16, 14:11, 1 John 5:16. For some, we are to withdraw ourselves because the Lord has withdrawn himself. 1 Corinthians 5:9, 11, 2 Thessalonians 3:5-6, 14, 1 Timothy 6:5, Titus 3:10, 2 John 10. Where men bring God's justice to pass, there God's blessings abound. Where God must bring in judgment, he also brings in a curse with his justice. To wait, therefore, for the Lord to defend the Naboths of our day is to wait for God's curse and judgment. The whole city of Jezreel was involved in the guilt of Naboth's murder, 1 Kings 21:13, and the whole land. If unpunished, the crime and its guilt lay upon the entire land. If an injustice were wrought, invoking God's name and law, as in the murder of Naboth, all partook of blasphemy and incurred the death penalty. To be silent where God's law is broken or misused is blasphemy. The silence of Israel before Ahab and Jezebel was rooted in their syncretism. Like Ahab, the Israelites believed in God after a fashion, but not to the same degree as do the devils in hell, who believe and tremble. James 2:19, while they refuse to obey God the Lord. Israel trembled before Ahab and Jezebel, not before the Lord. Ahab believed in the wisdom and power of man's way, and so did all Israel, because the people moved in terms of the fear of man, not the fear of the Lord. Solomon tells us that the fear of man bringeth a snare, but whoso putteth his trust in the Lord shall be safe. Proverbs 29:25. Fear of the Lord tendeth to life, and he that hath it shall abide satisfied. He shall not be visited with evil. Proverbs 19:23. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Proverbs 1:7. Of the wicked man, David says, there is no fear of God before his eyes. Psalm 36:1. We have no reason to believe that Naboth was any better than his neighbours, nor any reason not to believe that he was a godly man. We are told nothing except that he defended his ancestral land. The point of this episode is not the character of Naboth, but the depravity of Israel and its syncretism. On Mount Carmel, the people refused to take a stand when Elijah said, "How long halt ye between two opinions? If the Lord be God, follow him, but if Baal, then follow him." And the people answered him not a word. 1 Kings 18:21. Israel was again silent when Jezebel drove Elijah out of the land. Moreover, Israel gave no evidences of displeasure at Ahab's apostate foreign policy and his trust in alliances rather than the Lord. Whatever Naboth's personal character apart from his defense of his land, his blood was innocent blood. He was murdered by means of abuse of the law. The murder of any man is evil, and the use of the law, in this case God's law, to commit murder compounds the crime. It adds blasphemy to murder. The whole land was thus again implicated in the crime. Israel was already a condemned people. 1 Kings 20:42. This further offence only made it clear that they deserved their condemnation. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, "Arise, go down to meet Ahab, king of Israel, which is in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, whither he is gone down to possess it. And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, Hast thou killed and also taken possession? And thou shalt speak unto him, saying, Thus saith the Lord, In the place where dogs lick the blood of Naboth, shall dogs lick thy blood, even thine." And Ahab said to Elijah, "Hast thou found me, O mine enemy?" And he answered, "I have found thee, because thou hast sold thyself to work evil in the sight of the Lord. Behold, I will bring evil upon thee, and will take away thy posterity, and will cut off from Ahab him that pisseth against the wall, and him that is shut up and left in Israel, and will make thine house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, for the provocation therewith thou hast provoked me to anger, and made Israel to sin. And to Jezebel also spake the Lord, saying, The dogs shall eat Jezebel by the wall of Jezreel. Him that dieth of Ahab in the city the dogs shall eat. But there was none like unto Ahab, which did sell himself to work wickedness in the sight of the Lord, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. And he did very abominably in the following idols, according to all things as did the Amorites, whom the Lord cast out before the children of Israel. And it came to pass, when Ahab heard these words, that he rent his clothes, and put sackcloth upon his flesh, and fasted, and lay in sackcloth, and went softly. And the word of the Lord came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Seest thou how Ahab humbleth himself before me? Because he humbleth himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his days, but in his son's days will I bring the evil upon his house. 1 Kings 21:17-29. A fundamental principle of biblical law is blood for blood. Whoso sheddeth man's blood, by man shall his blood be shed, for in the image of God made he man. Genesis 9:6. And if any mischief follow, then thou shalt give life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burning for burning, wound for wound, stripe for stripe. Exodus 21:23-25. Dogs licked up the blood of Naboth. There in the same place, dogs would lick up the blood of Ahab. Because Ahab had publicly used God's law to commit murder, God would publicly bring shame upon him in the same disgrace. Scavenger dogs would lick up his blood. All Israel knew of Ahab's murder of Naboth and was silent. The public judgment upon Ahab in the very same place would not only bring home the justice of God upon Ahab to all Israel, but would also make clear to them that their own judgment was inescapable. In every age, the wages of sin is death. Romans 6:23. No doubt the partial revival under Elisha's ministry was in part due to the shock and fear of judgment. The promise to Ahab is the total annihilation of his family. All were implicated, all shared in the guilt as well as the profits of Naboth's murder. Jezebel is singled out for special mention because she was more than a profiting follower in Ahab's sins. She was an active partner. Ahab attributed Elijah's words to enmity rather than God's justice, although in his heart he knew the truth of them. Elijah did not give priority in the murder to Jezebel, evil though she was. It was Ahab's work. Hast thou killed and also taken possession? Ahab's sins were murder, theft and blasphemy, and using God's law to commit these crimes. Jezebel was the bolder criminal, but Ahab the chief sinner. Ahab was a syncretist. He believed in God, but served himself. Where God suited his purposes, he obeyed God, no doubt, but where Baal suited his purposes, he was a Baalist. At all times, it was his own way and will which Ahab obeyed. As a result, the prophetic author of 1 Kings compares him to the totally godless Amorites who had been dispossessed from Canaan. Humanism, man's way, means dispossession. It is pursued in every age by men like Ahab as the means to possession. Murder, theft, blasphemy, and false witness are used to increase man's power, kingdom, and glory, and for a time they seem to succeed. Asaph describes in Psalm 73 his dismay in seeing the prosperity of the wicked, but in seeing God's purposes, he understands the coming judgment and God's unfailing righteousness. David tells us, and our Lord repeats it, that the meek shall inherit the earth and shall delight themselves in the abundance of peace. Psalm 37:11, Matthew 5:5. Dispossession and captivity are the lot of the wicked. Ahab had sold himself, Elijah declares, to work evil in the sight of the Lord. He had made himself a slave to evil, and into judgment and a felon's death he would go. This judgment was a shock to Ahab, whose conviction now equaled that of the devils. He both believed in God and trembled. James 2:19. We are told that, in terror, he rent his clothes, put on sackcloth, fasted, and went softly. The New English Bible renders this, went about muttering to himself, implying panic to the point of instability. Apparently, too, he was in prayer. At any rate, the Lord stayed the total destruction of Ahab's dynasty until after Ahab's death. But God did not lift the judgment of dispossession. In our day, the nations are virtually all heedless of the Lord. The historical Christian countries are filled with Ahab-like churches, nominally Christian and to all practical intent humanistic. They are compromised with the Moloch Baal of statism, of humanistic law and education, and with an indifference to all but the minimum forms of the faith is routine. They say, "Lord, Lord," and refuse to know him. They turn with hatred on all who take God at his word. Like Ahab, they call God's faithful followers enemies. They accuse him of troubling the Israel of God. 1 Kings 18:17. But the Lord in his time shall trouble them and dispossess them, and his judgment on them shall be more severe than on Sodom and Gomorrah. For to be outwardly of the Lord and to despise his law word is blasphemy, and a more fearful sin than open unbelief in sin. As our Lord said of the outward Israel of his day, "Woe to thee, Chorazin! Woe to thee, Bethsaida! For if the mighty works which were done in you had been done in Tyre and Sidon, they would have repented long ago in sackcloth and ashes. But I say unto you, it shall be more tolerable for Tyre and Sidon at the day of judgment than for you. And thou, Capernaum, which are exalted unto heaven, shall be brought down to hell. For if the mighty works which have been done in thee had been done in Sodom, it would have remained until this day. But I say unto you, that it shall be more tolerable for the land of Sodom in the day of judgment than for thee." Matthew 11:21-24. The Pharisees looked at the sins of other men and of other nations and said, "We are better than they, whatever we are. Surely God will favor us, for at our worst we are superior to these other men." Luke 18:10-14. But it was Israel which was judged before Assyria, Babylon or Rome? Where are the men like John Welch, who will pray with intensity for their people, as did Welch, John Knox's son-in-law, begging, "Lord, wilt thou not grant me Scotland?" Our concerns are now as narrow as our house and as petty as ourselves, and we fret about our own affairs and grow indignant over our own personal problems, while we are careless in prayer and indifferently remember God's kingdom and God's cause. Let us remember that there is not only a syncretism of faith, but also a syncretism of concern. What we can get excited, happy, or indignant about most readily will reveal where our heart and our treasure is. Our concerns today reveal our syncretism. They are as narrow as we are, and they are blasphemous. For in Herb Garden, Ahab murdered, robbed, bore false witness, and blasphemed, and he paid the price. Our evils may not be as great, but our priorities are usually as petty. For in Herb Garden, Ahab's concern, his dynasty perished. For their readiness to be party to Ahab's ways, a nation was condemned. 1 Kings 20:42. It is not the petty who inherit the earth, but the blessed meek, the tamed of God, who are ruled by him in all their being. Ahab's priority was in Herb Garden. Wrong priorities in any man is sin. What are our priorities?